Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Taff. This is going to be Taff's word about football. This is actually one not precisely about Newport County. I mean, it's going to figure the club. It's going to be sort of based on events of the club that I support, Newport County. But this is going to be touching on a bit of a big sort of interest subject in football now, and that's the inclusion of business people in the ownership of football clubs in modern football. Um, Basically, my club at the moment is fans owned. We've had a fair bit of business person involvement over the past years. It's brought success and a bit of downfall over the or during our reformation. I'm going to touch on where we went out of business before, but it's going to be about current events as well because, like I said, we're fans owned at the moment, and we've stabilised the club. We were in some pretty dire worry when we first looked to take over the club. It seemed as though our timing was perfect to take over things, but now we're in a position where the fans own thing hasn't really worked as well as as well as I think we hoped it would. Um, as much as the people who I think who are running the football club at the moment are doing their best, there's a lot of people who've been very critical of them. So I think where the finances aren't great, because I think we've thrown everything into staying up, funding Wesley's team. Obviously, has left us a bit short, and we got some. It sounds like we got some financial issues, and obviously the current board are looking to find business people to invest. Where that would be music to the ears of a fair few of our supporters, I think we have got to look to the ear of caution. And if we go back to what I'm going to call the beginning of this now, 1986, Jerry Sherman got controlling interest of our football club. Promises of a new stadium, an investment, and 3 years later, boom, gone. Bankrupt. 1989, darkest year in a Newport County supporter's life, that is. Obviously, we reformed later that year. 1990 saw the birth of Newport AFC, which then obviously became Newport County, and we found our way back to the Football League after 25 years. We may lose that this season, but obviously we're not talking about that right now. So Jerry Sherman was the one that done it to us. I don't think we were the first club to go out of business, but I think we were one of the first sort of notable big sort of situations where the fans of a football club, they lost their team basically. And it happened to us once, could have happened to us twice if not for our fans take over. But I'll touch on that again later. We're going to look at one of the most high profile falls from grace, and that was Leeds. Business person Peter Ridsdale. Is it Peter Ridsdale? Oh, I can't remember his freaking name now. Paul, Peter, whatever. I don't think Leeds want to remember his name anyway. 100 million in debt, fell from the top of the Premier League. Well, we're at a point where they were pushing for honours, semi-finalists of a Champions League, down to League One, now in the Championship, could be getting back to where they should be, Premier League football. And I say they've been so poorly run, they were so poorly run, just throwing money everywhere and then just drove them into a bunch of debt. Look, teams have been poorly run. Newcastle, you can't get any further than Newcastle, of course. Absolutely awful. That's a club that should never be relegated. Aston Villa, poorly run. We're talking about business people now, and Newport County fans. You see it a lot. Saying the club should be run by business people. It's like, we're going to keep going through business people at football clubs. I can't even pronounce his name. Sasha. Oh, I can't even pronounce his name. I think Portsmouth fans will know just from the first word that I used then. 135 million of debt run up at that football club. FA Cup winners to League Two and twice administration. It's a sorry state for a football club, to be so short of money. Throwing money into the playing side of things, and if you haven't got a good footballer, how are you even going to get the playing side of things right? Everyone goes on about business people. What about football people? I mean, if you get the right combination of business and football, on a board of directors at a football club, then you got the recipe to turn, to make something good. Good commercial management, proper investment, proper player recruitment, investment into like your academy, for example, into your scouting, a good scouting network, a proper recruitment process, and like I say, good commercially run football club with good facilities to actually make the most out of the people coming through the gates. Give them a good match day experience, and they'll keep coming back. Whether the football's good or not, you got to have that about you. I mean, let's run through some more clubs. I mean, Wimbledon, who are now MK Dons, down to poor running. But then Southampton, they had a fall. They fell to League One, as did Leicester and Norwich. Luton fell out of the Football League from the Championship down to 8th of the Football League, into administration, points deductions and everything like that. Chester, out of existence. Aldershot, out of existence. I mean, look how badly things are going with Cardiff. Vincent Tan's thrown a bunch of money into it, but he's not running a football club properly, really, is he? Bournemouth nearly went out of business before they rise. I mean, they learned from their mistakes, and now they're a Premier League team. It just goes to show how you can rise in football if you do things right. But when you do things wrong, it's just too many examples of how you can drop so badly. Darlington, pushing promotion from League Two, invested in a new stadium, all went wrong, bang. And where are they now? I think it's the Northern Premier they're in. I mean, it's such a fall from grace. A cracking football club like Darlington just falling out of not out of existence, but out of recognition. No modern football fan is going to think of Darlington when they think of good clubs, in the lower leagues. I mean, you look at Accrington. Accrington had to rise from the ashes, like Aldershot had to, like Chester have had to, like Newport County have had to. Maidstone is a non-league example, and Kettering and Rushden and Diamonds, all of them. Rushden are completely gone. They got AFC Rushden now. Maidstone were treated badly by their owners. Kettering, I remember seeing Kettering fall from basically a team that looked like they were going to do well. They invested in some players. Thought, oh, where they got the money from for this? But they had it from somewhere, and it turns out it was all in vain. I mean, they threw a bunch of money into their playing budget, and they couldn't sustain it. And now look at them; they fell. Scarborough completely out of existence. Airdrie is a good example to look up. Google Airdrie, and as a poorly run football club. I mean, Scotland, Airdrie ain't the only example of that. I mean, you look at Glasgow Rangers, the most high-profile mismanagement in Scotland. Livingston are another example, but Rangers had to start from League Two in Scotland just to prevent themselves from going out of existence completely. I mean, Celtic fans sung "Zombie Nation" to take the piss, because technically they died, but then they just got given the opportunity to come back if they went into League Two of Scotland. I mean, you look at Chelsea in the 80s, and they would have gone bankrupt if not for Ken Bates, and they look at them. They got a businessman that is pumping his money in, but he's allowing football people to do the football side of things, to make sure that's getting right. Because if you're going to put your money into something, you want to make sure it's getting spent correctly. Obviously another high profile, well, not so much a high profile, but another non-league example, but they fell from grace from the Championship of Stockport. I was there and I saw Stockport get relegated. Obviously all the Newport County fans, we saw Stockport get relegated. So I don't think business people are looking too good if you consider how many clubs have been completely done over by business people in the past. And then you look at the modern football now, and modern business people run clubs. The Oyston reign at Blackpool. I mean, they're stripping club assets. I mean, they're getting personal gain out of it left, right, and centre, completely neglecting the club and what it needs. They're another one, Premiership to League Two. I mean, you move on to Coventry, Premiership to almost certainly League Two. I mean, with these, it's the Sisu reign. Obviously, they want them out. I mean, rightly so. They're ruining their football club. Obviously, they're putting money into it, but then they're blaming everything on poor player recruitment. I mean, duh. If you haven't got the right football people there, then your player recruitment is going to be bad. If you're not investing the money in the right areas, then everything is going to go to shit. So you can put whatever money you want into it, but if you're not running the football club properly, then what's the point? You've got the Venkies at Blackburn. I mean, apparently their debt's around 104 million. Eight managers during their reign, and an average grade of just 14,000, considering Blackburn are ex-Premier League champions. That's absolutely dismal. They're in a relegation spot in the Championship, looking at falling to League One. You got the Roland bloke, I can't pronounce his last name, at Charlton. I mean, he's dictating team selection. When Chris Powell was a manager, he was dictating team selection. 8 managers in 2 years, about 44 million in debt, and they got absolutely no ambition at all. They don't care where the club are as long as they're making their money, and rightly so. They want them bloody out. I mean, you look at the teams in my. I mean, I mentioned us, Newport County. We were days from a winding up order because of an unpaid Inland and Revenue invoice. When the interim trust board were put in place by Les Scadding as the takeover process was actually happening, when the previous directors went, the financial director dropped a bunch of unpaid invoices on the club office door, and one of them, like I said, it was a tax bill, a big one, and that could have done us. I mean, Northampton had to get saved last season, in the middle of building a stadium, run out of money, in the shit. They were saved and got promoted, I mean, going from the worst case scenario to the best case scenario, and now they're looking like a tidy League One club. I mean, Leyton Orient, look what's happening there. Italian owners absolutely destroying the club. Fans are striving to raise money, which could potentially just end up going down a black hole. I mean, it's absolutely dire. Notts County had to get bailed out. Morecambe haven't paid their players for 2 months. And it's just happening all over football now. So this is all business people. I've rambled on for 12 minutes now, and it's all about business people in football. So really, is business people the right way to go? I mean, after everything I've just said, is business people the right way to go with the running of a football club? I mean, let's not beat around the bush now. You do need some sort of business expertise, because modern football clubs do have to be run as a business pretty much. But the thing is, right, what you'll tend to find is that the business people will run a football club too much like a business. I mean, obviously you've got to run it like a business, but you can't run it entirely the same as you would any run-of-the-mill business, because you're going to be neglecting the whole point. It's a football club. The primary thing about a football club is that you play football. So when you're looking at a regular business, obviously you're looking at improve your income stream, but a big part of business is cost savings, cutting your costs down, and obviously making the most of selling expendable assets. So expendable assets, we're talking about training grounds, we're talking about big players. I mean, what you tend to find is when a business person is running a business and they sell an expendable asset for a couple of £1 million, they're not going to think to reinvest that couple of £1 million into a similar expendable asset, which is to them a football player. So I don't know, Newport County, Tom Owen Evans. Someone comes in, £1 million, Tom Owen Evans. Yeah, we take it, £1 million. We're fans owned, so we're going to look at putting that £1 million back into our playing budget to increase, the competitiveness that we can compete with, basically. So a business person sells Tom Owen Evans for £1 million. Are they going to reinvest all that into the playing budget? No, because it's not going to make good business sense. They'll sell expendable assets, and they'll only reinvest them in areas that's going to make them more money, and that's what it's all about in the business world. But in the football world, that's not the attitude you can have to run a good football club. I mean, tell me now, right? How many business people that have got into football, invested into football, have actually made any real money out of football? There's not many out there. A lot of them are just throwing their money in, and that's it. And when they do throw their money in, it's on a loan basis, so that club has to pay them back one day. So if people think that a business person coming in just throwing their money in is the best way to be a successful football club, you're dead wrong. unless you get lucky like Man City, you get Sheikh Mansour, who's just got so much money to just throw away, as a hobby, or Roman Abramovich. You're not gonna. It's not gonna happen just like that. One business person isn't gonna come in and just change everything for you. So, I've compiled a bit of a list actually of what I think would help. Sorry, the way I'm sat, I'm on the edge of my bed here, and it's all the blood. I'm restricting all the blood down to my foot and getting pins and needles. So, sorry if I'm moving around a lot. So, I've made a little bit of a list here. I think what we need is a stricter fit and proper person's evaluation before anyone's allowed to buy a football club. I think they've got to outline their intentions with that football club and what they would look to do. And like I say, guidelines to it as well. Football League has to say that you're going to sign here to agree that when you buy this football club, you're going to put the footballing aspects of the club before the business aspect. Well, you can't word it exactly like that, but I think you know what I'm trying to get at there. I do think you need more EFL involvement in the running of clubs. I think you need to have investigators looking at clubs on a regular basis, having a look to make sure that the football side of things isn't getting neglected. Fan ownership is something to be encouraged, I think. We might moan at Newport County because we haven't got as much money as everybody else, but I tell you something now, there's a lot of clubs, like the ones I've just mentioned, the likes of Coventry, Blackpool, Charlton and Blackburn, who would swap to be in our position right now and be in charge of their own destiny. That's I do think that's something that you need to look, you need to take seriously. You look at things like financial fair play. That's a good thing, but I think it does need to be stricter. I think it's because when clubs have got more money and they're throwing loads of money into their playing budget, you get lonely clubs with not much money. They're going to throw every single spare penny they can into it, and a lot of things are going to get neglected on that. I think something like in the EFL, it's 55% of your turnover you can put into your playing budget. But then obviously our turnover is absolutely nothing compared to the likes of Doncaster, Portsmouth, Plymouth. But we still need to try and compete with these people. So every spare penny is going to go into our playing budget, and that's possibly the reason why we're in financial constraints right now. But I think you know what I'm getting at there. So a stricter fair play budget. I'm not maybe going down the road of wage capping, but then without a strict wage cap, obviously you can't just price people out of being able to, if a football club's run better, they should reap the benefits of it. But then if you're getting a club that's just got stupid amounts of money, it's just going to be impossible to compete with them. I think it needs to be a bit more of a level playing field, but without restricting people too much. But it ain't my job to work that one out. It's up to the EFL to work that one out. So I'll pass that on to them. Premier League money needs to be distributed more for the non-playing. So basically, I know Premier League money is distributed to the clubs, is filtered down, but I think more needs to be because people are getting paid stupid amounts of money in the Premier League now, and it's just ridiculous. There are players in the Premier League who are earning like a third of a League Two's entire team's playing budget for the year in just 1 week. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's players on £200,000 to £300,000 a week, when Newport County's playing budget is around somewhere between 8 to 900k, I believe, or close to £1 million a year. It's just absolutely ridiculous money. So instead of paying those players all that money, they could pay them still a large percentage of that money, but have money that can be filtered down to make sure that we're safeguarding the futures of the clubs down below. Because look, I name clubs in our division in League Two who are in financial trouble and could use a bit of money right now. So I think the Premier League money needs to be distributed a little bit more generously to the lower leagues. Self-sustainability is something that should be encouraged. Not bringing in people that's going to throw money in, but only using your own income. Like I say, the financial fair play rules are there, but there's nothing against you taking a loan from a chairman or a director. So you take a loan, £2 million loan, you put £2 million into your playing budget, you get promoted 2 seasons in a row. You know, I mean, what happens then when you don't get promoted because you haven't got the football, you haven't got the player recruitment right, and there's 2 million of debt that you've got to pay some bloke who's lost interest because, oh, I just paid all this money for this and nothing's come of it. You know what I mean? I think penalties, individual penalties for negligence and poor running of a football club need to come in. You know, like a manager can get fined for misconduct, like players get suspended for foul play. I think a chairman should be held accountable for the poor running of a football club, and that's where the likes of Carl Oyston, that Roland bloke, the Venkies and Sisu, that's where they're gonna get, they're gonna come unstuck, and then they're gonna want to move on because they're gonna get sick of the penalties for poor club management. So yeah, they're just a few suggestions I think that could help make the game better because football is, I wouldn't say that the game is dying, but it's losing its identity in so many different ways, and I think business people in football is a big part of the downfall. I think fan-owned clubs should be encouraged, and then I think, like I said, a stricter, proper person's thing, but people who are looking out for the football club, going in there knowing I'm not going to make any money out of this, but I'm a football fan, or I'm a fan of this club, or I admire this club, I'd like to see them do well. I'm coming in to invest money to progress this football club, not to progress my own personal gains. You know, people just don't make money from football clubs. So, like I say, you got the Oyster situation selling off assets, Charlton selling players left, right, and centre, and not giving the manager the money to respend. No, there's just a few examples of where it's all going wrong, and I just hope to God now that things change because, like I say, football losing its identity is just a shower of shit these days, and yeah, I could just keep going on about it all night. I'm going to waste more of your time if I keep going on. I think I've said everything I think I need to say. I think I've given enough examples. Business people, I think my club, more than anything, needs to take a long look at our situation and then take an even longer look at the situation of all the clubs I've mentioned there and think, are we really up for risking that? Because apparently someone who was looking to buy us was the ones, Alfred and Town is one I missed out, a poorly run football club. The people who cocked things up for them when they were in the conference, the same people who were looking to buy our club before our supporters trust took over. We'd have got relegated last season if that was the case, you know. So yeah, there's basically what I think of the whole thing. I think business people doesn't necessarily mean a well-run football club. You've got to get the right mix. You've got to get the right mix of the business heads, the commercial heads, and the football heads. You get it all right, and they all sing from the same hymn sheet, then you'll see a good football club like Burton. Burton is a very good example. Bournemouth is the perfect example. Swansea is another great example where fan ownership has played a big part in the rise of a football club. So, like I say, Newport County fans, if you're watching this, if you're the ones wanting business people, I hope that I've given a bit of caution to you to the way you're thinking in the future. And for those who agree with me, I hope I've sort of confirmed a lot of your feelings on the whole matter. But anyway, that's nearly 25 minutes of me rambling on about this subject now, so I think I'm going to leave it there. But thanks very much for watching, and I hope this has made some sort of difference in the way that people think about business people in football in the future. All right, thanks very much again. Cheers. Bye-bye.